Right, okay, good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee, Thursday the 28th of April 2022. For those of you who don't know me, but most of you do, I'm Councillor Caleb Tomlinson. I'm the chair of this committee and I represent Bamber Bridge West Ward. The meeting's been recorded and streamed live to YouTube. If you're attending the meeting because you're a member of the public who has registered to speak, please note you have a time limit of 4 minutes. You will be timed and I will confirm when 4 minutes runs out. You should then finish or in the middle of making a point, wind up. You come to the microphone at the desk, press the speak button, introduce yourself, and then you'll start timing you. Please can you ensure your mobile phones are on silent? Hand sanitizer and cleaning spray is available around the building if you wish to use it. We're not anticipating a fire alarm drill, but if the alarm does go off, the fire exit is behind you and we'll meet on the car park. So if I can now ask everyone to introduce themselves, we'll start with the young lady on my left.
Good evening, Jodie Ingram, Senior Solicitor.
Good evening, Councillor Mal Donoghue, representing Severn Stars Ward and Vice Chair of the Planning Committee.
Charlotte Lynch, Democratic Services Officer.
Councillor Gareth Watson, Count Green, Gregson Lane.
Councillor Claire Hunter, Bamber Bridge East.
Councillor Chris Lomax, Walton Dale East.
Good evening, Councillor Phil Smith, representing New Lumpton and Hutton East.
Good evening, Councillor Harry Hancock, Broad Oak, Penwitham.
Good evening, Councillor John Hesketh, Longton and Hutton West.
Good evening, Kath Unsworth, representing St Ambrose Ward.
Good evening, Damien Bretherton, representing Walton Dale West.
Good evening, Colin Sharples, representing Earnshaw Bridge. Thank you.
Good evening, Janice Crook, Planning Officer.
Good evening, Debbie Roberts, Planning Officer.
Good evening, Jonathan No, Director of Planning and Development.
Okay, thanks for that. Do we have apologies for absence, please, Charlotte?
Yes, Chair. We've had apologies from Councillors Mary Green, Councillor Caroline Moon, Councillor Will Adams and Councillor James Flannery, and Councillors Damien Breverton, Colin Sharples and Kath Unsworth are attending as substitutes. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Thanks substitutes. Thanks for attending. Do we have any declarations of interest? Okay, I've read the minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of April and I agree with them. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Second those, Chair.
Oh, thanks, Councillor Smith and Councillor Donoghue.
Shows the minutes are perfect, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 5 this evening, and that is, oh yeah, can we go to the vote on the minutes, please? I think the monitors aren't working, so can we just have a show of hands, do it the old-fashioned way? Right, I'm looking at the subs and they weren't here. Right, okay, we move on to item 6. Oh, no, we don't. We move on to item 5 now. I keep getting distracted. Appeal decisions, please, Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair. There's one appeal to report tonight and two updates. So in terms of an appeal decision we've received relates to land at Cottage Gardens, Bamber Bridge, which was a development for 11 dwellings on the site. And this came before this planning committee last year. The inspector considered there were 3 main issues as part of the appeal. The first one was trees affected by a tree preservation order. The second area was the relationship with the rest of the wider site S off Brindle Road. And the final one was the effect of the proposal on living conditions of nearby residential occupiers. in each of those 3 areas, the inspector found that there'd be no adverse impacts on its safer construction disturbance for existing occupiers, and on that basis the appeal has been allowed in that instance. Just a couple of things just to update planning committee on is if you recall, we've had a couple of applications by Wayne Homes at Chain House Lane, which have both been to public inquiry. The first one went to inquiry and it was found in the courts that the planning inspector's decision was wrong and it had to go back to a re-inquiry. So we had a second planning inquiry on that. Again, the planning inspector found that the council was right to refuse the planning application there. Wayne Homes again tried to challenge this through the courts, but they have not been granted leave to do that by the courts this time around. We've literally found this out yesterday. So that's good news. It's the end of that saga for the time being. And the final update in terms of appeals is we do now have the appeal for the site at Pickering's Farm from Taylor Wimpey and Homes England, and the inquiry date has been named as starting on Tuesday the 23rd of August later this year, and will run for 4 weeks. So if any members need further information on that, please do let us know. Thanks.
Right, some good news and some not so. Okay, item number 6 this evening, land west of Lancashire Business Park. Janice, if you could present the item, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So our members will recall that this application came before Planning Committee in February, when the decision was deferred to allow further discussions on issues raised during the meeting. So just to recap, I'll just run through the background slides that are presented in February. So this application relates to Farrington Hall Estates off Centurion Way in Farrington.
Can you hear me? Charlotte will adjust the volume for you.
Right, so can you hear me now? Can you hear me? There's something wrong with it. Right, so the application relates to Farrington Hall Estates off Centurion Way in Farrington. The site is adjacent to the Lancashire Business Park, which lies to the east. To the west are residential properties, and to the south is the Tomlinson Road Industrial Estate. So this excerpts from the South Ribble Local Plan. So the site G is allocated for employment under Policy 1, the site G. This excerpt shows how it relates to other land use allocations. So the crosshatch, that's existing employment areas, and the red is housing land allocations, which are under construction. So site L was allocated for housing and acted as an enabling development to help bring this employment site forward. That development's known as Grasmere Avenue and is near completion. In terms of surrounding residential land uses, residential properties are to the west, located on Bispam Avenue, Riverside, Brookside Close, Mill Lane, Meadowland Close and Morleycroft, and are all on the opposite side of the River Lostock. There are new properties on the Grasmere Avenue development, as I mentioned, that's to the east, and to the south are residential properties on Hall Lane, Bluebell Wood and Summerfield. So outline approval was granted by Planning Committee on the 15th of January 2021 and established the principle of development for up to 56,904 square metres of light industrial within the EG use class, general industrial within the B2 use class, storage and distribution within the B8 use class, and ancillary office accommodation together with the means of access. All matters were reserved apart from the access, and an indicative master plan was submitted at outline stage, which demonstrated how the site could potentially be developed, along with a building heights plan and a parameters plan. So this reserve matters application provides details of the scale, layout, appearance and landscaping for part of the site for a building of up to 51,794 square metres within use class B8, together with ancillary office space and associated works, including car parking and servicing areas. The area edged in red is not part of this application and will be subject to a separate reserve matters application in due course. So when this application came before Planning Committee in February, it was deferred to allow discussion to take place between the applicants and officers in consultation with the local residents in relation to issues raised during that meeting. The main issues were the difference between the indicative outline plan and the reserve matters plan, the size, scale and position of the building and potential impacts in terms of the hours of operation, noise, light pollution, air pollution, and particularly the effects on the dispersal of the stacks from the adjacent global renewables waste plant, and also the impact on TV and digital communication services. So in terms of the difference between the outline and this reserve matters application, the indicative outline plan demonstrated 6 units overall, 4 in the location of the now proposed single building. Members and residents considered it a substantially different proposal. However, it must be reiterated that the plan submitted at outline stage was indicative and merely demonstrated how the site could be developed. The only matters approved were the principle of development on this site and the 2 accesses. So it's officers' view that this reserve matters proposal has a number of benefits over the indicative outline plan. As demonstrated on this slide, the service areas were close to residential properties with the potential for operational noise. With this reserve matters scheme, the building effectively screens residents from the single service area. All residential properties are now 150 metres from the yard area. The proposal now offers much more mature landscaping, and proposed car parking area is to be screened by acoustic fencing. In terms of the size, scale and position of the proposed building, this has been amended following the deferral and will be 18.5 metres high at ridge and 16.7 metres at each elevation. This is a reduction from the originally proposed 22 metres in height and represents a 25% reduction overall and has been achieved by providing an alternative roof structure. The building will be constructed in metal cladding in a palette braze. This again is amended from the original scheme and will help the building blend more into the existing area and the backdrop of the waste plant and the Lancashire Business Park beyond. So this slide just shows the reduction in height from the originally submitted proposal. So you can see the original height in the dotted red line above. So the position of the building has not changed since deferral. However, this slide demonstrates the spatial separation distances to existing residential properties, and these are considered to meet our normally required standards. Additional screening is also proposed to the boundary along the River Lostock, including mature 5 metre tall trees. In terms of excuse me, in terms of noise generation, this will come from the operation of the site, particularly as it's a 24-hour, 7-hour operation, and HGV movements. Environmental Health have advised that the noise level will be 2 decibels above background noise at weekends only. In this case, the level of noise is classed as adverse, but this is in line with relevant guidance and not to a significant level, and therefore Environmental Health do not object in terms of noise. Following deferral, when the issue of noise was raised, the applicant has provided some additional commentary as reported in paragraphs 9.9.7 of the report to help allay residents' concerns, and will also provide some additional and acoustic fencing. They also clarified that the position of the road in relation to the waste plant bund had been included in the noise modelling. This slide demonstrates the levels of noise with the 2.5 metre high acoustic fence in place. The noise modelling has also taken into account reflections from the barrier and bund, which is something that residents had raised at the previous meeting. Environmental Health have reiterated that they do not object to the proposal on noise grounds. So in terms of lighting, a lighting plan has been submitted along with a draft lighting design strategy. The plan demonstrates lighting spillage from the site. The service yard is the brightest and the grey areas show where there's no light spillage. And this is just an illustration of lighting around the building. And again, you can see that the majority of the lit area is the service yard and car park. Additional landscaping will be provided with the existing return to help soften and screen the proposed building and any lighting adjacent to residential properties. Condition 20 on the outline approval required the submission of a lighting design strategy, and therefore the final lighting design strategy will need to be submitted in order to discharge this condition through a formal process, and will need to be agreed by both Environmental Health and the Greater Manchester Ecology Unit. So in respect of air quality, Environmental Health were satisfied with the proposal subject to suitable mitigation measures being provided to address the damage cost associated with the development. The air quality assessment and addendum note submitted at outline stage included the mitigation measures, and condition 12 was imposed on the outline approval, requiring the development be carried out in accordance with the air quality assessment and addendum note. The mitigation measures include public rights-of-way upgrades to improve sustainable access to the site, electric vehicle charging spaces and cabling to all spaces to increase electric vehicle charging as needed, secure covered cycle parking, enhanced staff facilities such as showers and changing areas to encourage sustainable transport. Additionally, the northern access point and the travel plan will result in vehicles travelling to junction 29 of the M6, avoiding the air quality management area to the south. In respect of the issue raised regarding dispersal from the global renewable stacks, the building is 200 metres from the stacks, and Environmental Health have advised that the building is far enough away to not cause any issues. Additionally, the applicant's air quality consultants provided a letter, and that's reported at paragraph 9.10.10 of the report, which provides the calculations. One matter that residents have raised on a number of occasions is the access to the site and the potential for noise and light pollution from HGV vehicles. As previously advised, the access to the site was approved at outline stage, and the access road from Sustainability Way has been constructed following the discharge of pre-commencement conditions. However, the applicant is providing an acoustic fence along the access road, which is to have additional climber planting to screen, and will provide planting in the area edged blue. You can see there. And they've agreed that with Lancashire County Council, and that will help screen the access road from views from Bispham Avenue. And this photograph shows the areas for the proposed planting and is taken from the access road looking towards properties on Bispham Avenue. It's considered that with the proposed acoustic screening and planting, this will effectively mitigate any impacts from vehicle noise and glare from headlights. Additionally, it must be recognised that the access road is 80 plus metres to the closest residential property and has already been approved. So residents were also concerned that the proposal would impact on TV and digital communications services due to the height of the building. So section 9.17 of the report outlines the findings of a report commissioned by the applicant. As the report identifies potential for disruption, a number of mitigation measures have been put forward and the applicants have agreed to monitor the situation. So condition 6 has therefore been included to ensure the development is carried out fully in accordance with the mitigation measures outlined in that report. So one of the main issues raised by residents is flood risk in the area. So a substantial benefit of this reserve matters application is the proposal to deculvert the existing culverted watercourse. The watercourse falls under the jurisdiction of the Environment Agency and it's classed as a main river. So hydraulic calculations have been submitted to, reviewed and accepted by the Environment Agency, who have confirmed the proposals are acceptable. And since the committee report was published, the Environment Agency have formally responded, advising that they have no objection and do not require any additional conditions to be imposed. And this has been reported by way of an update sheet. The proposed scheme also brings benefits in terms of biodiversity net gain. This is an excerpt from the Ecological Enhancement Plan and includes measures such as the area of T3 at the bottom, the existing grasslands to be retained and overseeded with species-rich grassland seed, and T6 central. That pond, as part of the SUDS infrastructure, will be planted with aquatic species with a variance of emergent, floating, oxygenating and marginal species to create the highest benefit for wildlife. And these are just two examples. Essentially, there will be 7-acre ecological area with accessible public space and 10% biodiversity net gain. In terms of the council's aim to become carbon neutral by 2030 and the comments made by Environmental Health as reported in paragraph 9.13.6, a number of measures are proposed which the applicant considers will result in the BREEAM Excellent standard being achieved, as identified in Core Strategy Policy 27. The measures include photovoltaic panel-ready roof structure, a floor slab that's suitable for large battery storage to capture the energy generated from the PV panels, 56 electric vehicle charging spaces with infrastructure in place for additional spaces. So the applicant advises that good quality organisations are seeking to make large investments in single buildings with high quality green credentials as they push towards zero carbon. And conditions 28 and 29 on the outline approval require the submission of the BREEAM design stage certificate and post-construction review certificate confirming that the development has achieved these BREEAM standards. So it's recognised that this reserve matters scheme represents a substantial building, and this image shows it in the context of the surrounding land uses. But potential impacts of this scheme must be balanced against the benefit. The proposals bring this brownfield and contaminated site into employment use and provide for around 600 jobs to be created during construction and approximately 1,000 jobs created during operation and related supply chain roles. Noise and air quality can be mitigated against. Additional landscaping includes over 500 new trees. The formation of a biodiversity-rich area around the proposed sustainable drainage attenuation pond. The deculverting watercourse and improvements to flood risk not only on the site but for the wider area, and the upgrading of the public rights of way to a 3-metre wide combined cycle path. It's considered that the benefits of the scheme outweigh the limited impacts, and the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for the detailed report, Janice. Okay, I have one registered speaker on this item this evening, Mr. Michael Scott.
Hello. Michael Scott, resident of 39 Bisping Avenue, Farrington Moss. Just like to put a few points towards you. Going back to the outline planning, I've looked at a few things and I know that was all passed off and stuff, but I'd like to know, was the committee told that the highways and Lancaster County Council were against going through the industrial estate with traffic? So part of your master plan, the South River master plan, states in there that the highways and Lancaster County Council didn't want traffic going through the business park. If it would have split it would have split it 2 ways. The main access would have been through Centurion Way. Then the access that they're trying to use should be controlled by a barrier as an emergency exit. It's all in your master plan. But I wanted to know why you weren't told this when you give this outline planning permission for a smaller development. It states that, well, you're trying to put 3/4 of that traffic from that business site through one access that goes to a mini roundabout, which will cause gridlock. I just wanted to know why I've not been told. It's all in your master plan. I did write a letter and highlighted it. Yeah, so I'm just wondering, do you know about that? Okay, right, so I'll put that in my letter. And it also goes against your air quality plan, which states that you're pushing all the traffic through a small area, which will get standing traffic, and it's all going to be in that industrial estate. Secondly, you've got a 600 car parking spaces that I can see out my bedroom window. All the residents can see because of the lie of the land. You're going to have all them lights there. Why should I have 600 people parking the car looking at my bedroom window just because you want to put the biggest unit you can possibly put on this land? I think it's wrong and it needs sorting out. We mentioned about the 24-hour working conditions and noise and all that. Nothing's been done about that, really. I know it's been passed before, but you haven't been told the true facts about everything. You're always saying it's 2 decibels above this. It's going to cause absolute havoc for us. All we're saying is put the right size development on there, not cramming this massive thing on there that's going to cause problems for us. Like I said last time, they've done a survey about all the TV signals and DAB signals. They've stated that it will wipe them all out, but they're going to mitigate it by every time something rings up, they're going to mend it. But why should they put a building there that big that's going to create this problem? You don't need to. It's just so a developer can make more money. That's what they're trying to do. Cram the biggest thing in there for the big bang for the buck, innit? The councillors did ask for significant changes. Why I understand they have done changes, which I do appreciate. Some of them they've come to our house and stuff. It's not big enough changes, I don't think. It's still too big for this land, and the access road's the killer for it. And the other thing is, are there going to be food retail units in there? Because if they are, I think there's going to be a risk because of all the flies and the smells and stuff that do come out of that waste plant. I don't think it should have anything to do with like food stuffs in there. Because of all the problems, if you look back, we've had 8-10 years of problems to do with flies, smells and everything. So I think it should be a condition that you shouldn't have anything to do with foodstuffs next to a building like that. So that's where I'm up to, really. That's about it, really. It's just the outline planning is wrong. You weren't advised properly about it. You know it's in your plan, Janice.
Yeah, go on, Janice. I mean,
yeah.
Generally speaking, we have 4 minutes by the objector. We don't generally do this, but if Janice,
yeah.
I'll pause for it.
Thank you.
Are we talking about the local plan?
The master plan that you adopted in
The
2015.
South Ribble local plan? Yeah.
And it states in there that the highways, Lancaster County Council are against the access road being used and going through the industrial estate. The preferred access was Centurion Way, and it was split into two for houses at one side and the development at the other. And what's happening here, you've got 3/4 of that space being funneled through the access, and it's against the plan.
But Lancashire County Council's Highway Authority were consulted on the outline approval and they didn't raise any objection.
Why weren't the councillors told about it though?
They were. It was reported in the outline report what Lancashire County Council said.
That they're against it?
No, they weren't against it.
That's what it says, they're against it.
No.
It says in... So it does state that in here.
You're talking about the local plan, but Lancashire County Council's Highway Authority were consulted on the outline application and the proposed accesses, and they had no objection to it.
So in the local plan, they objected to it, but when it comes to it, when they get in a ransom strip, they don't object to it.
Well, I think they did object to it in the local plan.
It said it, does say it. It's in, I've got it here. I can tell you the actual... It says... the County Council and the Highways Authority do not support a route running through the site and would like to see traffic movements controlled. And that is 8.20 of the Master Plan, South Ribble. So now you're trying to funnel 3/4 of that traffic through one little road to a roundabout that's got Clive Hurts there, it's got a waste plant there, and a full industrial estate that's going to get gridlocked. I'm just saying, if you're going to make a decision, it's got to be an informed one, and you all need to know the facts.
Yeah, we can clarify that.
Yeah, you'll get your chance, okay.
Okay, and I'm done after that, thank you very much. Yep, that's all I wanted to bring to your attention.
Okay,
it's done right. I understand it should be done right, but that's not been done right.
All right, thanks, Mr. Scott.
Thank you.
Janice, do you need to come back on anything on that before we move on?
I think Jonathan's just checking the wording of the local plan, but as I said, when it was the outline application, which was for the access, county highways were consulted and they didn't raise objection. It's not actually a through route through the site. There's two separate accesses. There is a link for emergency vehicles and for cyclists, but there's not a route through the site. So I think that might be where the confusion lies, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Janice. Okay, all right. Councillor Karen Walton. Just before you come in, Councillor Walton, just give me 1 minute. Jonathan, can you just give us some clarity on that for the committee, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've just got the local plan open in front of me on 8.2, and then in the middle of that 8.20, sorry, and in the middle of that paragraph it says the County Council, the Highways Authority does not support a route running through the site and we wish to see traffic movements controlled. Now my interpretation of that is that the county do not want a road that links through the site from top through to bottom and links in with top to bottom. Yeah, that was my interpretation of that. And in any event, for the outline, we had a response from County Highways, which supported the outline scheme in any event, which supersedes this.
All right, thanks for that, Jonathan. Yeah. Okay, we have Councillor Karen Walton, the ward councillor. Okay, Karen. Sorry, Councillor Walton.
It's okay.
Okay, you have 4 minutes,
Thank you.
Councillor
Good
Walton.
evening, everyone. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Janice, once again for your very detailed report. I fully support proposals to develop areas of the borough to provide good employment and job opportunities for South Ribble residents, and especially in bringing forward previously contaminated sites following the South Ribble Local Plan Policy E1. But there must be also regard for the Local Plan Policy G17 concerning the detrimental effect and impact on developments on existing neighbouring and residential properties from such a new development as this. This new application has substantial and well-considered changes going above and beyond those already identified. And I can commend Caddick developers for their commitment to bringing forward these changes as a direct response to concerns raised by local residents and members during specific discussions and following the Planning Committee's decision for deferral on the 10th of February. Meetings and email correspondence have taken place with residents, myself and other members and officers from the developer to help inform everyone of the changes between the outline application and this application before the Planning Committee tonight. There have been opportunities to explain the proposals, to comment and review the documents, to identify the areas of development that could be reviewed, using the consultations, comments and discussions to inform the significant changes made to this application tonight. The changes, as we've heard, include reducing the overall height of the building from 22 metres to 16.7 metres to reduce impact, and redesigning the roof, resulting in no loss of light to adjacent properties, subtle colour banding on the outside of the building, specifically designed to reduce visibility and soften its appearance, reducing the size of the car park to allow for a much wider and higher bunded area with an additional bund constructed, including the planting of mature 5 metre tall trees for additional screening. The building of a new 2.5 metre acoustic fence, again, with mature trees planted between residential properties to screen the buildings from view. Caddick developers also commissioned an additional technical noise analysis of the site, and its findings include the noise sources will be offset by the building itself, and the adjacent bund will continue to reduce noise from the global renewal site. This is a direct result of noise concerns raised by the residents. There has been a full review of landscaping along the western boundary and retaining existing trees and providing a landscaping buffer of over 500 mature trees and thousands of shrubs. There is further commitment to monitor the landscaping and planting to provide further screening if necessary after the completion of the building. The lighting plan is now based on a more accurate lighting model with fencing and planting along the access road to ensure there will be no light spillage or headlight glare to existing properties, and the provision of dark corridors for ecological purposes to ensure there will be no adverse effect on the residential area. A comprehensive mitigation strategy is also proposed to ensure there will be no impact on residents' television, digital or radio signals, with a commitment to monitor and resolve any problems that may occur in the future. The Environmental Agency has raised no objections subject to an environmental permit and significant investment in ecological enhancement to improve flood resilience and management with new recreational routes created for residents. The development will create up to 600 construction jobs and over 1,000 jobs when the development will be completed a year from the start of construction. But I do ask the committee to consider carefully this application, as I still have concerns over the 24-hour, 7-day-a-week access and work into the building, which is considered necessary to this business model. But I could I recommend that strict conditions on the use of especially vehicle reversing sirens be limited to perhaps daylight hours, and also to monitor the increase in traffic on the already congested A582, with the effect of having the results of poorer air quality and the effect on the health and well-being for existing residents in the whole of the Farrington area. And are there any plans in place to mitigate and monitor this important issue, which will affect us all? Thank you for listening.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Walton. I must like you, you've had 4 minutes, 40 seconds.
Thank you.
I'll let it go this time. Okay, we have dialing in Councillor Michael Green. Councillor Green, can you hear us out there in Neverland?
I can, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Chairman. Good evening. Members of the Planning Committee, officers, residents and developer. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak this evening. I think it's 11 weeks since the last Planning Committee when you considered this application, and at the time there were some significant concerns amongst the residents, members of the committee and myself regarding the size, the scale of the potential development and the proximity to residents and overall the impact potentially upon the amenity of residents in the area, potential for noise, light, air pollution, and the concern over an impact on TV and communications. Since then, a lot of progress has been made, it is fair to say. I'd like to begin by thanking the committee for, at the last meeting, deferring the application and allowing extra work to be done, and I think that's proven to be invaluable. So that's a testament to yourselves and the members who were on the committee that evening, who may not be there this evening, who actually did raise some significant concerns and genuinely did listen. And thanks to the officers who have dealt with this, and thank you to the developers, Caddick Developments, because they have gone a significant way in order to allay a lot of the concerns. So they've met with local councillors, they've met with residents, they've been in a lot of the properties of the residents to actually look at the concerns from each individual property's perspective, and have been able to achieve a number of improvements which have been set out in the report and have been set out this evening by Janice and by Councillor Walton. In particular, I was concerned about the height of the building, and I'm pleased to see that a significant improvement has been made in terms of taking that height of the building down significantly, and credit to the developers in that regard. I'm also really pleased to see the additional screening, bunding, fence, additional 5-metre tall trees, which I think is a really positive step. So while sometimes developers put extra trees in, they can often be quite small, but these are going to be 5 metres tall, which is really positive. Mr. Chairman and councillors, there is no doubt that this remains a significant building. It will be of significant scale moving forwards, but nevertheless there are a number of advantages to the development as well. So we're going to see contaminated land being cleared, trees planted, extra landscaping, enhancement to the ecology. Importantly, over 1,000 new jobs being brought to the local area. And we're going to see upgrades to the public rights of way to see joint footpath and cycleway improvements, which is really to be welcomed. But we must remember that this is a brownfield site. It was a landfill site, and it's been included in South Liverpool's local plan for over 20 years as a site for employment. But I think on balance, whilst there remains some concerns among some members of the public, and I still have some concerns, I think this is now at a stage where members may wish to see this being approved this evening, and I think there are some significant benefits. I know Mr. Scott's concerns which he expressed, but they are relating in particular to the outline planning permission, which may not be up for consideration this evening. I also note in the report, and from speaking directly to the developers, that there is a willingness to monitor the landscaping and screening moving forwards, and to consider extra screening post-completion of the building, should that be necessary. And I'm just wondering whether there's some kind of condition that members may wish to impose to ensure that there is a fund available to see those works being done if they do prove to be necessary. So I'll leave that for yourselves to consider. I do still have some concerns. I think Councillor Walton expressed them very well regarding the impact of 24-hour working and vehicle movements. Now, I understand that may be necessary in terms of the business model, and we do wish the business to be successful moving forwards. But I would like you to consider whether the conditions are stringent enough to ensure that we protect the residential amenity in the area. So with those concerns, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I'll leave it for you to consider further. But once again, thank you for listening. Thank you for deferring the application last time, and as a result, we are seeing some massive improvements moving forwards. It's not dealing with every single concern, no, but there's significant progress from where we were. Thank you to the officers for considering it further, and to Caddick Developments for the work that they've done to bring this forward in a way which takes on board the vast majority of concerns which have been raised. Thank you.
Gosh, I must be in a good mood. He's had 5 minutes. I'm getting soft. Right, okay. Nick Pleasant, Tom Park. Or is it just Nick Pleasant? That is fine. If both of you wish to address, I'd rather you do it at the same time rather than one after the other because it gets it over with quicker.
Thank you, Chair.
If only we were being addressed by Nick Park. Yes, yes, sir.
I can only but disappoint. Apologies. I do have some very brief slides. So I'll just point Janice in the direction.
That's fine. Yes.
Thank you very much. Firstly, thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of the proposals this evening. If I could just clarify one point before I move on to some other matters in relation to the access. As Mr. Node helpfully pointed out, our understanding is that the local plan, excuse me, the local plan seems to avoid a through route through the site, which is what we've progressed on the basis of with the outline and the reserve matters, and that's been supported by Lancashire County Council. It's really just to echo the points that Mr. Node made earlier on. Since Planning Committee in February, we've met extensively with officers, members, and most importantly, residents, as has been outlined, and we thank all of those involved for their positive engagement. We've listened carefully to that feedback and revised the proposals in response, and we are pleased to report what we think is very favourable responses from those that have been consulted. Excuse me. Residents and members were clear that the building height should be reduced, and we've done so, and we've reduced it to the lowest possible height that we can do whilst remaining commercially viable, and that's a reduction of 25% below that previously accepted at outline. We're also providing further screening of the entire site with mature trees of over 5 metres at the outset, which is the largest possible specimen size that we can provide on the site at the outset. We've also included the colour banding on the cladding as has been described, which reduces the visibility and the perceived massing. Screening from the north has been enhanced by the bund as described, and that will be planted with additional trees, with further trees planted beyond that at the request of residents, and that benefits both our development and the adjacent waste plant. We've also committed to a high quality and sensitive lighting scheme, and our assessment show there have been no light spillage to adjacent residents. To pick up on a major point that's been raised so far in terms of 24 operations, just to clarify that all our technical assessments on things like noise, air quality and lighting have all been undertaken on a 24-hour operational basis, and they show there'll be no adverse effects on residents, and that has been confirmed with all consultees. Janice, if I could just ask for the next slide, please. The proposed layout delivers significant noise betterment compared to the outline consent, as there is much greater separation between the service yards and residential properties. For example, in the garden of the closest property, the worst case nighttime weekend noise will be 43 decibels, which is 2 decibels above background, which is a similar noise to that which would be experienced in a quiet library. Notwithstanding this, we provide further mitigation, such as the extra bund and acoustic fencing, as has been described. The comparison plan before you there shows a far greater standoff to residential properties compared to the outline stage, and that has significant noise and visual benefits, as I've just described. If I could ask for the next slide. We understand that flooding is a very sensitive local issue. We've worked extensively with the Environment Agency to agree a significant flood mitigation package, the key element being the removal of an enclosed concrete culvert and replacing that with a specifically designed open channel. In terms of the technicalities, this slows down the flow of water, increases capacity and delivers significant flood management benefits along with biodiversity benefits. Turning to air quality, a concern was raised about the waste plant, and we've addressed those concerns with a revised report, and that has been confirmed to environmental health. And we also have a package of air quality measures, which includes a contribution to sustainable travel and a traffic management plan to divert vehicles away from leyland and residential areas. Concerns were also raised in terms of loss of TV and digital signal, hence we commissioned additional work to address those points, and we have agreed to undertake further assessments, and should any issues be brought, then we will address those as quickly as possible. if I could move on to what I think is the final slide. Thank you, Janice. I'd just like to finish by emphasising the very significant benefits of this scheme. Not least, it's the regeneration of former landfill with a highly sustainable BREEAM excellent development, an 11.5 acre, 7 hectare ecological area with public open space, which has 10% biodiversity net gain, high quality cycle links in the form of the Leyland Loop, which will be provided as part of the development, as well as new and improved walking routes, 600 jobs created during construction, with these opportunities offered through local job centres, a commitment to work with local colleges to create apprenticeships, work experience and deliver local MVQs, and we will encourage the use of local suppliers during the construction phase. In terms of the operational stage, there will be 1,100 new jobs created, and these will again be offered locally by way of an employment skills training plan which is secured through the Outline Planning Commission. And finally, there will be a £41 million boost per annum to the local economy. In summary, we consider the application to be significantly improved following further and intensive consultation and is entirely within the scope and parameters of the outline. In fact, it is a significant improvement to the outline consent in every way and will deliver very substantial benefits to the local community and throughout the wider area. Therefore, we request members for the Office of Recommendation to grant planning permission. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Nick. Them words, next slide, please. They just make me shudder for some reason, don't they?
We tried to think.
I did specifically try not to use those words, but apologies.
Anyway, so you were 5 minutes and 10 seconds, so you'll have 3. Okay, all right. It's just for fairness, if you understand. Yeah. All right, so you're Tom Park, the applicant.
Yeah. Thanks for your time this evening. I'm Tom Park from Caddick Development. So I want to reiterate Nick's comments, but I also want to give you some background on Caddick as a developer and the progress which colleagues and I have carried out since the last committee. Caddick are a northern-based, family-run business who have been trading for 40 years. We pride ourselves on our reputation and strive to be good neighbours within communities we work in. This has been shown in the numerous developments that we've completed. With this in mind, since the last committee, we have thoroughly engaged with councillors and residents, explaining the scheme in more detail and outlining the benefits. We have also requested ideas from the residents about how they feel the scheme could be better for them. I'm pleased to say that we've implemented the majority of suggestions, still allowing us to create a commercially viable development. Residents can be assured that Caddick will be involved throughout the development process, which means we are able to update them and answer any queries directly. The development will be a highly sustainable, BREEAM excellent, with a 11.5 acre ecological area for staff and residents to enjoy. Improved footpath and cycle links through the site, increased flood resilience through a new naturalised drainage system and create new jobs for local people. The building will likely be occupied by a blue chip tenant, which will be a flagship development within South Ribble. These types of occupiers have a high social and sustainability targets and will provide a high class environment for the staff. I hope it comes across in my next presentation that we have sought to do everything possible to satisfy residents and councillors, and therefore respectfully request that members follow the officer recommendation to grant the planning permission.
Okay, gents, thanks very much for your presentation. And we now bring this application into committee. Councillor Lomax.
Just to say, there has been a heck of a lot of work done since last time it was brought. I am in favour of the work that will be undertaken with the environment and the cleaning up of the area. I'm glad to see that the actual height levels of the building have been brought down. I'm not going to go through all the points, but personally, I believe we should vote in favour of this site.
Okay, Councillor Lomax, so that's a proposal for approval. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. I would have to agree with Councillor Lomax. I think there's been a tremendous amount of work done to improve the quality of this site. Actually, much more than I anticipated there would be, frankly. It's quite encouraging to see someone who's engaged so well with the comments that have been made at this committee, in honesty. I know that we've had some that have engaged well in the past and some not so, but this is possibly the best one I've seen in that respect. So I'll keep it short and say I'm happy to second Councillor Lomax's proposal.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Watson. Councillor Smith, then Councillor Hesketh.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask first from the developers, they said about engaging with residents during the development stage. Is there any sort of laid down formula for that, or regular meetings or whatever? It's an important stage in the development of this site, and to be quite honest, the development stage of the site will probably be worse than the building itself as and when it's constructed. So the construction stage is really, really important. And then whether there's a sort of a formula for engaging with the residents during that stage, it's been mentioned there, but is there a formal?
Nick, can you help me out with that one? Is there a formal consultation or forward? So, okay, Councillor Smith.
It would have been useful to hear the microphone, but I think I heard most of it, to be quite honest. So I think, the residents of that particular area have put up with an awful lot with regard to from the waste site since 2008 and 2009, and ongoing for the next 10 years, I suppose, with all the smells and the noises and the various things that have come from that site, which has been totally unacceptable over that period. And I know the residents and members are very sensitive to what might happen on that site and the development of that site in particular, and very, very sensitive because of the history itself, which doesn't help. I think, and I won't go over what the other members have said, but that it's probably as good as it gets, I think, from the residents' point of view with regard to development. A couple of things that I don't agree with, and there was talked about the indicative design stage. To be quite honest, if the planning application doesn't fit in with the master plan, there's something wrong somewhere. And I don't like the words of indicative, in the sense that the master plan doesn't really matter anymore. Nevertheless, we've got before us what is an application, and we need to sort of make a judgment on that application. Will the residents be affected? Yes, they will. There's absolutely no doubt about that whatsoever. Is that acceptable in the terms of what we're seeing before us? Well, maybe. Could there be something worse on that site than what we're seeing now? Most definitely there could. So I think it really is a question of balance with regard to whether we would like to, we've had a proposal and accepted, but whether we would like to vote for that. There's some interesting comments from the councillors. Certainly the sound of reversing noises and these beeps that go on, you hear loudly across the areas. We hear them from the farms, from the garden centres and various things, and they are really, really noisy, and that noise will travel, particularly at night. and I don't know whether there's anything can be done about that. Somebody it was said, could they be switched off? I'm not sure whether that would be legally, operationally effective, to be quite honest. But it is. Sorry, Chair. There's a lot of talking going on there, which is just not helping me concentrate on what I want to say, to be quite honest. So, if you wouldn't mind, thank you.
Yeah, okay. We're just having one meeting. If Councillor Smith can say his piece, please. Thank you.
Well, I'm trying my best, Chair. Thank you. So there are still several concerns with regard to this site. The size and scale it is absolutely huge. We understand that, but I have to say I think the developers, unlike previous developers on the waste plant site, Global Renewables, do really seem to be concerned with the development. There's been speaking to the residents, and I think there's been a lot of consultation there. So I have to say I'm tempted to go with vote for approval on this. On balance, I think vote for approval, but I think it's just probably as good as it gets, Chair. We do welcome all the jobs that this will bring, the economic development of the site, the apprenticeships, the work plans are all good, to be quite honest. So, and the Brian development obviously makes it a quality development in those terms, which again is really, really important. It's not just a big shed; it's something that's well designed and well put together in planning standards. So I think I would be tempted to go with it, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. There has been a noise impact assessment, hasn't there? Yeah, and the design is the design we're going to get, isn't it? Okay. All right, thanks, Janice. Councillor Hesketh.
Thank you, Chair. I think most of it has been said tonight, but this development has been a long drawn-out application, Mr. Chairman. It does have outline application rights, but tonight we have to decide on landscaping and design and so forth. There has been a great deal of discussion with the developer and local public. So I think that it's been well discussed. One thing that I am happy about is that there will be more trees on the site when finished, and that there will be an order on them to be protected for 5 years. Does that, just a query, after the 5 years, do they have a preservation order on them, or can the developer or whoever has it just let them die down? That's a query that I'd like to know. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hesketh. Janice, would you like to come in on that one?
Yeah, the condition says that any tree that's dead, dying or dangerous must be replaced within 5 years. It doesn't automatically mean that there's a tree preservation order on, but that's certainly something that in the future we could look at. That's a different set of legislation from a planning condition, but yeah, we could certainly look at that in the future.
Just something that come to mind this evening, that we do that, and I do have a feeling that sometimes these trees are left to do their own thing after, and
yeah, but the planning condition, we can only control it for the 5 years.
I understand that. Yeah. Right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Councillor Hesketh. Any other members of the committee wishing to speak on this item? No. So I've had a proposal for approval from Councillor Lomax, seconded by Councillor Watson. Do I have any other proposals? No. Okay, just before we go to the vote, and it'll be roll call because the electronic system's playing up this evening. I'd just like to commend the applicant personally, because he's actually done what we asked him to, gone out and consulted with the residents, and he has done that where a lot of applicants just don't bother. They just fetch it back and come back, and it's always the same application. Right, okay, we're going to do a roll call then. Okay, Councillor Bretherton. Councillor Donoghue. Councillor Hancock. Councillor Hesketh. Councillor Hunter. Councillor Lomax. Councillor Sharples, Councillor Smith,
For.
Councillor Unsworth, and Councillor Gareth Watson. And I am also in favour of the application. So Jodie, if you can give us.
The application in respect of land west of Lancashire Business Park has been unanimously approved, subject to conditions in the report.
Okay, thanks for that, Jodie. Okay, if you were just here for that item is now concluded and you can leave. Was Councillor Bretherton just here for that item?
Not the feeling.
Right, okay, I've been advised it doesn't matter whether Councillor Bretherton's returned to the meeting or not. We need to crack on. All right, number 7, Howick Hall Farm, Howick Cross Lane, Penwortham. Debbie, please could you present the item?
Thank you, Chair. The proposal site is a semi-rural, God, that's loud, semi-rural location in the Greenbelt. There is the river 750 metres to the north, and the end of Howick Cross Lane is in a similar location. There are residential to the south and west, and they're between 30 and 90 metres from the access point and 140 metres from the infrastructure that I'll tell you about in a second. For context, the site itself is next to the National Grid power station. The site's 3.6 acres and the power station's 52 acres. The Energy Act in 2013 identifies the need for reliable, secure electricity supplies and facilities which help manage imbalances during high and low demand and fluctuations in energy provision. The facilities also give local advantage in periods of blackout. The scheme on the screen has already been approved twice, and it's actually an ex-stamp permission. The proposal I'm going to show you tonight is essentially the same, but it's upgraded technology, and because of financial and funding implications in the past, the previous schemes haven't been able to go forward. The scheme itself is it's a battery storage facility, 49.99 megawatts of electricity. There are a series of E-houses and MV blocks to house transformers. They're essentially single-storey steel cabins, 132 kilovolt substation with associated infrastructure, and all of this stuff is relatively low. I think the highest point is about 6 metres in relation to the wider National Grid site. There'll be a temporary construction compound, surrounding steel fence and CCTV, but there'll be no external lighting apart from during periods of maintenance and construction. Construction is daytime only anyway, but it's essential lighting. Landscaping, the hedgerow will be reduced at the site entrance, which is down this way, and additional tree planting all the way around the edges of the site. And there is an attenuation pond. Surface water runs into swales throughout the site and would drain into that pond, and gravel footways would also drain into the pond, so there's no risk of flooding off-site. Construction will take about 6 months, but after that it'd be largely unmanned apart from maintenance and during emergency situations. it has to be sited there because it's got to be close to the existing infrastructure, but it also protects the visual and general amenity of the wider community are quite away from this. And it doesn't sterilise other industrial land, which we could use for better purposes, I think. Okay, so the proposal before you is to vary the scheme that's already approved. As you can see, it's very, very similar, but the housing units have been shifted around. The attenuation pond is on the right-hand side of the site instead of across the top. The access to the site, everything else remains the same. Landscaping, no change to that. Changes on the plan don't look that big. They're big enough to need a new permission, but they are really just a reconfiguration of what's already been approved and an upgrade in technology terms. This is the site viewed from Pollard's Farm entrance. The site's here. It's screened by existing trees. This is Pollard's Farm. And this is the power station viewed from the proposed access. So this will be the access into the new site, and this is the existing set. The new infrastructure wouldn't be anywhere near as high as this. The property's on the west of Howick Cross Lane, viewed from the proposed access. There is one there, and there is one roughly the same distance beyond it, but there are none to the other side of the site. And that's the proposed site viewed from the access onto Howick Cross Lane. As you can see, it's well screened. These pylons are just beyond the boundary. So the power lines run across the site, but they wouldn't be affected either. And National Grid don't have an issue with that. Okay. The applicant supplied a series of documents, and they've been assessed by our statutory consultees who have no objections subject to conditions, and they're all noted in the main report. There are no letters of representation. It's acknowledged that it's inappropriate greenbelt development, and so the applicants had to demonstrate that there are very special circumstances which outweigh that harm. The reasoning behind the proposal citing and the impact on the greenbelt are fully documented in the report. And I won't go through it all now because it's quite a lengthy discussion, but officers are satisfied that the very special circumstances required of greenbelt policy have been demonstrated. It's considered that the benefits of the scheme outweigh the limited harm to the greenbelt, and for the reasons in the report and having regard to the extant permission, which could go ahead anyway, we would recommend approval with conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your report, Debbie. No, okay, we'll come into committee then. Councillor Hesketh and then Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We in South Liberal are not too keen on building on greenbelt land, but has been put forward tonight. We do have special circumstances here. This is a site which is adjacent to the existing National Grid site, and it would blend in very, very well as far as I'm concerned. The development would help to back up our future power supplies. We must look forward over the power supplies within this country these days and look to the future. One never knows when we need these type of things. So I will go along with recommending approval, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hesketh. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with what Councillor Hesketh has said, and obviously as we shift away from fossil fuels, as we've mentioned before, we're going to need more and more of these kind of sites. So I'm happy to second approval. I just have one quick question, which isn't going to change my mind one way or the other. But if it was another 0.01 megawatt of extra storage, does it come under some kind of extra requirement for the site? Is that why it's been 49.99?
My very non-technical explanation. As far as I can tell, anything over 50 megawatts, I was going to say kilowatts and megawatts, requires an environmental impact assessment. And then we get into the realms of all sorts of other things. By keeping it that tiny little bit under, we don't need to do all that side of things. Thank you.
Thank you. That makes a great deal of sense. I thought it'd be something like that. Thank you.
All right, I've had a proposal, I've had a seconder for approval, unless I've got any other proposals. No, let's go to the roll call then. Councillor Bretherton. Councillor Donoghue,
Support, Chair.
Councillor Hancock, Councillor Hesketh, Councillor Hunter, Councillor Lomack, Councillor Sharples, Councillor Smith, Councillor Unsworth, Councillor Watson, Councillor Yates. Oh, sorry. I am also in favour of the application. Jodie, if you could give us the results.
The application in respect of Howick Hall Farm at Howick Cross Lane has been unanimously approved, subject to the conditions in the report.
All right, Jodie, thanks very much. Item 8 this evening. It's number 16 on the Hill, Liverpool Road, Penwitham. Janice, if you could introduce the report, please.
All right, thank you, Chair. So this application, the property is located on the corner of Liverpool Road and Priory Lane in Penwitham. It's on a busy crossroads junction with Cot Lane, and the site's within the Penwitham District Centre. So this is an aerial view of the application property and the immediate area. Priory Lane is a mix of commercial and residential properties, with the residential property, the water tower, diagonally opposite. Liverpool Road is predominantly commercial, however, some of the commercial premises have first floor residential apartments. So the property was previously used as a cafe, and permission was granted in 2019 for a change of use to a drinking establishment, 16 on the Hill. A number of conditions were imposed, and Condition 14 restricted the hours of use, and Condition 4 restricted the use of patio heaters externally. This was in the interest of residential amenity, particularly as a number of the properties, there are a number of residential properties in the area. So the proposal now is to vary these conditions to allow the use of the patio heaters and to extend the hours of use of the premises to align to those of the premises licence, because they were slightly different. Members may recall that a neighbouring property, which is just highlighted on the slide, the Ginger Ale, recently applied and gained permission to extend their hours of opening to be in line with their premises licence, and therefore it must be considered appropriate to also extend this application premises. So the application, the recommendation, sorry, I can't speak. The recommendation is that the variation of conditions be approved. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thanks for that extremely detailed report, Janice. Well, obviously there's nobody here to speak in favour or against it, or any ward councillors. So, Councillor Hesketh, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We should have a balanced view for this type of application, Mr. Chairman, and we should go along with the application, because there are others in the area that have different rules and regulations, and I think they should all come under one umbrella, Mr. Chairman. So I will go along with approval.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hesketh. Councillor Hancock.
Sorry, could you hear what I said before?
Yeah. No, can you start again?
No. I mean, if this arises again, it can always be brought before the licensing committee, but I'll second John's approval with conditions.
Thank you, Councillor Hancock. You mean Councillor Hesketh? Do I have any other proposals? No other proposals? Okay, we'll do the roll call again. This is for approval. Councillor Bretherton, Councillor Donoghue, Councillor Hancock, Councillor Hesketh, Councillor Hunter, Councillor Lomax, Councillor Sharples, Councillor Smith, Councillor Unsworth, Councillor Watson, and I'm for approval as well. Geordie, if you can.
Members have unanimously approved the application in respect of 16 Liverpool Road, and that's approved subject to conditions in the report.
All right, thanks for that, Geordie. That brings the evening to a close. Thank you all for attending. A special thanks to the 3 substitutes. Thanks for putting yourselves out for us this evening. We will see you all, I think it's in June, the next meeting, isn't it? You don't need to smile that big, Janice. All right, thank you all. Good night.
Good night, everyone.